Dog relationships can be just as complicated as human relationships. And this can cause a lot of confusion for people, particularly around intra-household aggression cases. I find that people often really struggle when their dogs get along well most of the time or some of the time, and then have aggressive incidents at other times. And this confusion can lead to not taking those incidents of tension or aggression as seriously as they might otherwise, and might delay them reaching out for support, or it might delay them putting into place management that might otherwise be advisable, or even that their behavior professional is advising, because it might feel like overkill if you don't understand that dog relationships can be as complicated. Often I think that we think of it as the dogs either get along and love each other, or the dogs are fighting and we have a really big problem. But often it's a lot messier than that. And humans are like this too. So think about if you had a roommate. You might have a roommate that you loved very much. They were a very good friend. You enjoyed hanging out together, and then you decided to live together. And once you live together, you found out that actually that was a whole different ballgame. And just because you like someone doesn't mean you can live with them. Or we might have a situation where two dogs don't know each other and they move in together. Two humans, you could have the same thing. And at first, everything is going really well. Everyone is kind of minding their P's and Q's. New place, new roommate, trying to put on their best face. But that's only sustainable for so long. And as everyone starts to feel more comfortable in the relationship and in the space together, people might be a bit more themselves. And that can sometimes lead to conflict that wasn't there before, when everyone was being really careful and polite. Or we might see a strong, positive, healthy relationship that's had some ups and downs. And in the dog realm, sometimes those ups and downs might go unnoticed by humans, because what can be very loud tension between dogs can look like nothing to us. And then one day that argument or that tension, that conflict can sort of come to a head and spill over, and we might have like a big argument or fight with someone that changes our relationship with them, at least in the short term. And the same thing can happen with our dogs. And so in the same way that human relationships can evolve in a million different ways, so can dog-dog relationships. And there are a lot of factors that go into that, related to the individuals themselves, and then also how they exist within the relationship. And those factors can change over time, like how the dog feels in their body. We as humans, if we're experiencing pain or we're sick, might have a lower stress tolerance. We might be crankier. We might need more space. We might have a lower sensory threshold. And the same thing can happen with our dogs. And that's just one example. There can be lots of changes. Maybe the dog's human starts working more, or the dog picks up a new activity that's taking more of their resources, their energy, so they have less of a stress tolerance, or then that might translate into less of a tolerance for the other dog's behavior that before they just found annoying and now they find really aggravating. So these things can evolve and change, and most often that's what we're seeing in intra-household aggression cases. Sometimes, certainly, I am working cases where the dogs have no positive social history. They've never liked each other, and the goal is for them to do so. Or they might have perhaps no history together, but maybe the dogs don't have positive histories with other dogs, and so we want to take the introduction slowly and try to create a positive and safe relationship. But the majority of the time, the dogs that I'm seeing have, at least at some point in history, had a positive relationship with each other. And I think what really throws people off is when they still do. It's very difficult, I think, emotionally for us to comprehend that our dogs could be, fighting and injuring each other one day, and then be cuddled up next to each other the next day. And it's especially hard for people to understand that the risk of a dog fight is still really high in those days after the fight, even though the dogs are cuddled up together. And so having them together in that time frame and in that space is probably not the best idea. It's really risky, because the more fights we have, or even just tense moments that aren't fights, the more the relationship deteriorates, and the more poor our prognosis for getting back to safe and positive interactions decreases. And so my hope in making this video is that if you are someone who is noticing tension or noticing conflict or noticing infrequent low-level fighting between your dogs, that is the ideal time to take a very proactive approach. It is earlier than most people involve a behavior consultant, but it is such a good time because the less time the dogs spend with these conflicts, these tensions, walking on eggshells, experiencing these uncomfortable or carefully managed by themselves interactions, the less time that has to escalate and continue to deteriorate the relationship, the better things are for us and our work.